Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Action for the Soul. I'm going to try to share some ideas in this week's perasha and hopefully walk away with some insights into how we could find a more meaningful Shabbat and life. Parasha begins with a very simple statement. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. God says to Moses, God says to Moshe, Emor. He says, say, El Kohanim to the Kohanim, Bnei Haron, the sons of Haron, V'amarta
Please
lehem,
permanently take that off. The thing, no,
the Nefesh Chaya, right? Sorry about that. God says, V'amarta lehem le'nefesh lo yitma ba'amav. God says, you should tell the children of Aaron that they should not come into any contact, do not come into close contact to any one who is dead. We're talking about the laws of purity. Now, this particular verse is interesting because there is this double language of Emor over here. First, it says V'yomer Hashem Moshe Emor, say to the children of Aaron. Then it says Va'amarta, and you shall say. This is a very strange usage of language. Remember, the Torah itself is not interested in using its words for the sake of using its words. It's more interested in doing whatever is possible to keep the message as simple, straightforward, unless, of course, it's trying to teach you something more, right? So God says to Moshe to repeat all the other mitzvot to them, because through the performance of those mitzvot, the soul is elevated and it reaches a new status. It's got a more enhanced state than wherever it was before. And therefore, because of this new height and new status, a person is able to bring himself and the very same mitzvah to a much higher level, not just settling for where you are with doing the things that you're doing, but trying to push yourself above and beyond and becoming something more. Mitzvot actually have the power to change us. They have the power to elevate us. So if we are consistent in our observance, we can attain much higher levels today than we enjoyed yesterday. Now, this is where the secret of the miraculous transformation that enabled us as a nation of slaves, of people who not only were enslaved physically, but enslaved mentally, to become a priestly kingdom in only 49 days after the Exodus. Every day we were commanded to count, and we did so. We shed those little defilements of Egypt, those old restrictive ways of thinking, this slave mentality, and instead we fill the vacuum with the mitzvot of our God until we came to that awesome moment of the giving of the Torah on the holiday of Shavuot, which is coming up in a few weeks. At that time, God seals his covenant with us, forever changing us. This unique, seminal experience is where we learned how to perform our commands. It's not just about adding mitzvot to a portfolio, a deck of mitzvot, but really each mitzvah itself is creating a change in the essence of our beings, the essence of our souls. And this is it presents itself with an amazing opportunity for spiritual growth and tragedy. It's a tragedy not to avail ourselves of it. Okay, one second. People are complaining that they do not have access to this link. Let me see if I could just add people. I apologize. If you want to join these classes, you are more than welcome to. Come on Zoom if you're watching us on Facebook or if you're on Instagram. I'm posting this right now on my Facebook page. If I could find my Facebook page. Hold on a second. It should be actually, the link should be on my Facebook page, but I'm getting text messages from people. So let me just send this to them. I apologize for this delay. Here we go. Zoom is not working. Bam, there you go. Okay, that should work. Oh, I used the old link on my, what's it called? I apologize. All right, so let's keep moving. So what are the mitzvot themselves? The mitzvot themselves are a unique opportunity for us to develop ourselves and grow into something more. not allowing ourselves to, lose ourselves to this notion that the mitzvot themselves are just, oh, another thing I got to do, another ritual. This is a mistake. The mitzvot themselves are not ritualistic. The mitzvot themselves are meant to be opportunities for you to develop yourself. That is what the mitzvot is for. So our sages teach us that this double language of emor, of say, has another meaning, and that it is the adults have to go ahead and teach the young. Now, this is strange, right? Very puzzling. How is this command given to the Kohanim specifically when the Torah discusses contacting the dead? Meaning, like, okay, you want to tell me that Emor al Kohanim means go ahead and teach the dead, teach your children. Well, why give these mitzvot of teaching the dead? Why is this the pasuk that teaching us the mitzvot of teaching the dead? I can't get these sentences straight because they're so distracting.
No, we do it all.
Hold on a second. Let me just mute everybody. Where was I? Let us start again. I don't know why everything's coming in right now. This idea that Emor El Aharon is there to teach our children the Torah, right? The question is, why is it connected to this notion of reminding them of lo yitama be'amah, that they should not become impure among their nation? Now, of course, there's a very special lesson in here as well. Now, if you're following the news, you are aware of the grief that so many families are going through. This is horrific what happened in Meron. We're overcome by the grief of death. And it becomes easy at that point to abandon our responsibilities, right? It becomes easy to abandon all of our responsibilities, including teaching the young. It becomes easy to fall into a state of depression and to forget all the little eyes that are watching us. Therefore, the Torah teaches us that even, and this is the hardest thing, I'm going to say this, I know that there's an ideal here. I know that this is something we should be striving for, but I think it's worth saying. The Torah teaches us that even in the face of pain and suffering, our responsibility to serve as an example to our children can never be abandoned, no matter what the circumstances are. Our commitment to passing Torah, the knowledge of our ancestors, must transcend all considerations. Now, we've personally witnessed this, in the world that we're in today. There's so many tzaddikim who, despite the pain of their Holocaust experiences, despite the pain of watching families being completely incinerated, they devoted themselves to imparting the light of the Torah to the next generation. When they came to these shores, there's stories of how these amazing people came back to this country and built yeshivot, right? Stories of how they would stand at the entrance of the yeshiva, greeting every single child with a home-baked cookie and a kiss. These people were super people. They wouldn't allow their personal pain and suffering that they experienced in the concentration camps to impact the ability to pass on these ideals and beliefs to the next generation. But life's tests aren't quite over. When people learned of their own personal tragedies that came up after the Holocaust, cancer, sickness, this is people who survived and they lived a long life, right? Some of these people, instead of crumbling and shying from responsibility, it just made them stronger, because they understood that the purpose of life was a life of loving, not a life of taking. That this world was a unique opportunity for us to inspire a future, to create a better vision for tomorrow. Let us never succumb to the forces of darkness. Of course, when we need to mourn, we mourn. But let us bear in mind that we have a mission to elevate ourselves. And those people who are near to us, to God's divine calling, we have to do whatever we can to elevate those people as well. So how do you do this? In this week's perasha, we study the special mitzvah pertaining to the Kohanim, as well as to the Kohen Gadol. You have different kinds of priests. You have your regular priests, And then you what you call Kohen Hedyot, and then something called the Kohen Gadol, big kahuna. Now, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, is very different than an ordinary priest. It is it's much more than just the kind of clothing that he wears, right? An ordinary priest is that even in the midst of the pain of losing one of his close relatives, he has to continue carrying on, performing the mitzvot in the temple, the service, and to do whatever he can to impact and serve the Jewish people. The Torah states, and he shall not leave the sanctuary. This commandment is specifically to the Kohen Gadol, right? The Kohen Gadol has to bear in mind that his responsibility to the community is so great that he must repress his own personal suffering and to continue his service to the people regardless of the emotions that he has. I had an interesting meeting yesterday with a young man. He's a bachelor looking to get married. And, he's looking and looking and looking, but doesn't have the clarity as to what he wants, which is why he hasn't found anything yet. And I said to him, most people live a life where they believe their emotions determine their reality. Your emotions determine how you should feel in the situation. I'm feeling angry, and therefore I should be angry. I'm feeling happy, therefore I should be happy. And I reject that. Our emotions don't define us. Our emotions are a way of keeping us informed about the circumstance that we find ourselves in. Our emotions are there for us to relate to study, and then ask ourselves, is this emotion right now the right response to the circumstance that I find myself in where I'm at right now? Don't allow yourselves to be defined by your emotions. Think of this level of commitment that we are giving onto our leaders. A leader of the Jewish people has to find the strength within himself to transcend his great pain for the greater welfare of his community that he's serving. The teachings of Torah are timeless. This level of commitment applies to each and every single one of us. It's for our entire nation is described as Mamlechet Kohanim. It's not just for the Kohanim. We are a Mamlechet Kohanim, a priestly kingdom. So we're all Kohanim and we're all leaders. There is always someone in our lives who looks to us for strength. There's someone who you don't realize this. You may think, well, I'm just the local guy and there are other leaders. You don't realize, but you are a leader. You are special. You are great. And the Torah does this. It says, you know what? Every single person has a responsibility to be in a place where they are contributing back to society. If you think of yourself as not having a voice, of not being able to create impact, you're wrong. Because you are Mamlechet Kohanim, you are a priestly kingdom. And therefore, just like a Kohen, the Kohen Gadol, has the ability, a human being, has the ability of overcoming his emotions, living a life of higher values. Most people haven't spent time even thinking about their values. They're just thinking about how they're going to make their next dollar. They're thinking about how they're going to go out and go on their next vacation or the next toy they're going to buy. But spend some time defining your values, clarifying the things that are super important to you. You'll be able to overcome any situation that you find yourself in. This lesson applies to everyone, right? The idea that you are a leader, that someone's always watching what you're doing. This is the idea of watching yourself, lifnei iver, not putting a stumbling block in front of people because of ma'arat ayin, because of what people will perceive of your actions. So I won't go into a McDonald's unless it's an emergency to get some water because I don't want anyone to think, why is the rabbi walking into McDonald's? Maybe it's okay. Maybe he's doing it, I can do it. We play that game all the time. We're always playing copycat. Oh, well, he could do it, then I could do it. Rabbi, this person does it, why can't I do it? But if every single person says, you know what, I want to live with these higher values because I am a leader, we change the world. This idea is true for our parents, for our grandparents, for our rabbis, for our teachers. We always have to bear in mind that one day, and I have 6 of these things, they're called children, they will remember that in a time of crisis, they will remember how we responded. They will remember what we did in those circumstances when they went through grief. They'll remember that hopefully they were, at a time of crisis, they were steadfast in their faith, right? And God forbid the opposite is true. If you're someone who's swearing about God, who's always saying it's not fair, who's always talking about the things that are lacking, what do you think is going to happen to the kids? They're going to pick that up also. If we allow ourselves to succumb to emotional despair or just despair, that will be etched into your children's memories. It'll be etched into the people that watch you. So we have to ask ourselves, what legacy are we prepared to impart to future generations? Will we be remembered for the darkness that we allow to envelop us? Or will we be remembered for the faith and hope that we try to inspire? It's all in our hands. The choice is ours to make. How do you make the choice? Let's make it practical. How do you do this? It's simple. Well, it's going to sound very simple, like all things. The application of this is always going to be the most challenging. The way in which we grow is not by saying, I'm taking on all 613 commands, I'm doing everything. The way in which we grow is by taking each commandment one step at a time. Mastery. Don't just do things for the sake of doing them. Spend some time educating yourself. Go to classes, have conversations, ask questions. The people here that call me and ask me questions, who want to learn, who are looking for answers, those are the people who are real leaders in my book. Those are the people that are going to make an everlasting change in the next generation, who are going to give over the best parts of them to their children and to their grandchildren, ensuring that we have a brighter and better future. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom Mevarach. May you be blessed with the recognition that you are, my friends, a leader, that you are part of a Mamlechet Kohanim, that no matter what the circumstances you face, you are given the ability of transcending the emotions that you experience, that you are a soul, not the body. You're not defined by your emotions. Your emotions are important, but they don't tell you how to behave in the circumstance that you're on. With that, may be blessed with happiness, health, and kindness. May we see Mashiach B'mher B'meinu to end all suffering so we can bask in the glory of God. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.